All right, men, I want to tell you about the biggest thing Men's Alliance is doing in 2026. The biggest thing we're doing this year is our Leadership Summit. It's the first time we've done something like this, and the need for it could not be greater. We are training leaders in Men's Alliance. If you haven't noticed, we've got over 360 tribe leaders, over 45 region leaders, and now 7 division leaders. We are a leader building machine in Men's Alliance, and we are investing in you. We want to train you to be a better leader, no matter where you are, no matter what level you're at. This Leadership Summit is going to take you a level higher. April 17th and 18th. April 17th and 18th. It's at Salem Baptist Church, Richmond, Virginia. Salem Baptist Church, Richmond, Virginia, April 17th and 18th, 2026 Leadership Summit. Listen to some of our guest speakers. Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, Jason Eagle Dickinson, Lieutenant Colonel Eric Goen, Pastor Stan Grant, and retired Vice Admiral Dean Lee, along with me, Thor, Sheepdog, Gladiator, your MA staff. This is leadership training for MA tribesmen. Every tribesman is invited to this thing because every tribesman is a leader. There will be breakout sessions for chiefs, workout chiefs, devotion chiefs. There's going to be sessions for regional leaders, tribe leaders, division leaders. We are pouring into and investing in you, our leader, at every single level. Whether you are already in one of those roles or you desire to be in the future. Like I said, this is for any Men's Alliance tribesman. Don't miss our Leadership Summit 2026. This is the biggest thing we're doing. Go to our website and click on training. men'salliancetribe.com. Click on training and register for our summit today. We're only charging $25 for this thing, just enough to cover getting speakers here and making the coffee. So come on, we need you there. This is going to sharpen us all as leaders.
You want to wait for your coffee? Or?
No, not at all.
We already started.
We're rolling.
Oh, we're already rolling.
Yeah.
Perfect. Just like
What are we talking about today?
Man, today, I've been wanting to do this for so long. We're going to be talking about my favorite thing in Men's Alliance. Like, I love the tribes. I love getting together with the guys. Not so much the early morning workouts or anything like that, but Carry the Fire, right? Carry the Fire, where we're training men in apologetics, discipleship, leadership. So that's what we're here for. We're gonna tell everyone in Men's Alliance, not in Men's Alliance, have they been through Carry the Fire yet? Everyone that is like, what is Carry the Fire? We're going to answer those questions today. So I'm just going to start shooting, and I'll have some pointed questions to you guys, but if not,
when Gladiator says he's going to start shooting, that makes me twitch a little bit.
Yeah, shout out to Sherpa. You better watch out when he starts shooting things at you. Goodness, he aims for places. All right, so let's start out. Hey, Goose.
Yeah.
What is Carry the Fire, and how did it come about in Men's Alliance?
Man, Carry the Fire. First of all, I kind of want to hear this Sherpa story about his shooting.
Yeah, when we were at the train.
Yeah. I figured it was there. Did he?
We're 5 feet from each other, and he's supposed to shoot me, dead center, and he hits me right where I stuffed my hat.
The belt.
Yes, yeah,
shooting below the belt from 5 yards away.
Right in the bill of my hat. So, thanks, John Lovell. Thanks for that quick tip about stuffing your hat in your belt line.
Yeah,
but he couldn't pull the trigger in the final exercise when Kidwell was on the line.
Yeah,
I thought maybe it was a Warrior Knight story or a Warrior Princess story. Sure.
No.
Shooting.
No.
Okay. So, man, that makes me feel like we need it. It's about, we're due for another shooting trip.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, Carry the Fire. All right. What is Carry the Fire and how did it start? Carry the Fire is the training that we do to make men better leaders and better ambassadors for Christ. So, we always talk about the two most important things we do in Men's Alliance are tribes and training. Tribes and training. Get men into tribes and get them trained. Tribes and training. That's everything. And everybody knows the tribes part. The tribes part is super visible. Everybody's in a tribe. They meet weekly, workouts, fires, devos, call signs. That's the tribes. The training part is what I consider to be the most important thing we do. And that's carry the fire. The guys that are looking, for more, to go deeper, to go beyond, right? Like Thor and I said a long time ago, if a guy, all he does is just show up every week for a workout and devotion, that's just not enough. Like, that's not the end goal. The end goal is not to just get a guy that shows up every week in a tribe. That's great. That's awesome. We want that, but we want more than that. We want to take this guy and make him a better ambassador for Christ. And so that's what we do with Carry the Fire. And, we started off calling it Patch Class, and now it's kind of Carry the Fire Patch. It's interchangeable. Guys call it Patch Class or CTF. It's all the same thing. And, it's grown over the years, and I'm sure, that's a whole thing we can talk about, just like its evolution of how it started to where it is now. But like right now, what it is a guy gets 8 weeks of live calls online, not recorded, just in person calls where we ask the guys the hardest questions that we can possibly think of, right? We want to bring it to sharpen them, and then they answer, and then we pause and we debrief how that went, and we talk about what was good about the answer, what could have been better about the answer. And you do this over and over for 8 weeks, and by the end, we all have questions that at one point in our life we were ill-equipped to answer. We were afraid would be asked of us, and these questions keep men silent, right? So you're not going to be a very good ambassador for Christ if you're walking around with like half a dozen questions in your mind that you hope the world doesn't ask you. And so that's what we're doing. We're training men. And by the time you've practiced those things for 8 weeks, you're confident. You're walking around looking for conversations at the water cooler, right? You're hoping that somebody asks you. You're hoping that your kids or your neighbors, family members engage in these conversations. So it's that training, and then it culminates in a weekend experience that we call our FTX, field training exercise. And that is really the most fun, coolest thing I think we do in Men's Alliance. And when we were putting this whole thing together and brainstorming this FTX a couple years ago, one of the things I said was, I want it to be memorable. I want it to be one of the most memorable events in a guy's life. Like when a guy's 90 and he's in a rest home and he doesn't know his name anymore, he remembers the weekend that he earned his inmate patch. So I would say that's the long answer for what is Carry the Fire. It's that training combined with that weekend exercise that is going to be, it's designed to be nothing short of life-changing.
When you were talking about the difference between guys hoping that someone doesn't ask them a question, and then after Carry the Fire, they're prepared for it, and all of a sudden, they see those opportunities and those questions all the time, and we hear that story over. We're gonna
get to that. Those are some of the questions. But hey, thanks for joining us. Goose already answered all the questions I have for today, so we'll see you on the next one.
Oh man, I was holding back. The reins as much as I could.
No, that's awesome. That was a great explanation of what Carry the Fire is. So hey Thor, why do you feel there's a need for this discipleship and apologetic program for men today?
Oh man, so I think first and foremost, there's nothing else out there like this. So this, and I love it when we use this term like practical apologetics. So it's everyday, it's real world, it's conversations that happen at the water cooler or at the gas station, and having men prepared to answer those questions is so important. I know I can speak for myself. Before Patch Class, before Men's Alliance, I was absolutely that guy that would shy away from those conversations. And today I'm looking forward to them. So
yeah,
definitely a need.
Goose, I've heard you say before that similar to what Thor just said is, when you were in the Air Force, you would kind of shy away from these. Is that some of the things that sparked you creating Carry the Fire? Was basically building it for yourself?
Yeah. So what happened is I got into a group. It was like a, kind of like a Bible study group, many years ago with a guy, shout out to, Aaron Boykin, who led that group, still leads the group. And, this was like, nobody really remembers when we started that group. So that's one of the fun problems with that group. We don't know when we started it. But whenever it was 9 or so years ago, Aaron asked me, and he went around the room, and just asked, "Why are you a Christian?" And I remember I gave an answer that I thought was pretty good, and it kind of got destroyed. And I started looking at this. I started hearing my response from the ears of a non-Christian, from the ears of a skeptic, of another worldview or of atheism or whatever. And you realize, like, oh yeah, this would not really resonate with them. This would not really move the needle with them, my responses. And he's asking a lot of hard questions. And we started talking about, everything that we go through and Carry the Fire. Just like the topics just started expanding and expanding. And really what happened was, he was just putting a spotlight on some big deficiencies, right? In my knowledge. And I just got hungry to learn the answers. Right. And so started talking with Aaron, and, he's the one who introduced me to Frank Turk, Greg Kokel, Joe Warner Wallace. And man, it just, it's just one of those things that just kind of like clicked with me. It just lit a fire, and I went like all in, just devouring like every book I could. And at the time I had a nice commute of about an hour each way each day. And so I was listening to every Frank Turek podcast and every Greg Kokel podcast. And so I was really into those two guys, heavily influential on this. And then I started discovering a lot of others, Justin Brierley, Wallace, and those guys. And so there was a period of years there at the beginning of Men's Alliance, several years there where I was doing Men's Alliance was a tribe that I was in every Monday night. And then Apologetics was this other group that I was in on Thursdays. And I remember sometimes kind of thinking, and I remember one time I led a Devo on like, some responses to common questions. And it was still kind of weird. And I was like, that really wasn't a good real world devotion. I'm not going to do that again. And it was like, I was thinking that these two worlds might remain separate in my life. And then, and I'm sure I'm getting ahead here, but I'll just share this. There was this 1 week in my life, a 1 week period where I had these conversations with 3 different men in 1 week. And it just felt like, holy smokes, what is going on? Like, am I being set up here? Like, is there a hidden camera? How, I was having a conversation with a buddy. We were sitting at Fest, and he was like, yeah, my kid came home from college and said, I'm an atheist now. And I didn't know what to say. And that's what the guy said. And I was like, well, did you ask him why? Did you ask him, tell me more? Why have you become an atheist? And find out. He was like, I didn't think of that. I was just kind of caught off guard. I was saying this and that. And so another conversation, similar story, same week. And I'm starting to realize, hey, just like I'm in this group over here that's shown me my deficiencies and got me on fire for learning, I'm starting to see around me that this is happening with all these guys in MA. And it just kind of, these two rivers kind of started to converge. And kind of about that same time too, we were having these conversations about the creation of a challenge coin. that was working. You know, guys just in MA who come from military backgrounds, and they just start saying, hey, we should have a challenge coin in MA. And then we're like, yeah, absolutely we should. And you should have to earn it. And, you know, and then there should be a patch for MA. I want an MA patch. And we're like, that's a great idea. We should make one. And you should have to earn it. Right. And so all of a sudden, kind of a light bulb moment where you got the apologetics and you got the MA patch,
Right.
and you're like, you know what? Let's make the way you earn this thing is going through training to answer these questions. So all of a sudden, I remember talking with, you know, my wife, Carrie, and it's like, I think these things are merging. I don't think they're going to remain separate parts of my life anymore. I think it's just kind of all become one thing. And then you kind of start realizing, you're like, oh my gosh, like God's just been training me over here for several years, getting me ready to do this thing over here.
Those conversations point to the fact that God has given men this desire to lead their family spiritually, and so many men like don't know what that looks like. They don't know how to start. They don't know how to make that happen. In the same way, like men want to be able to answer those questions. And once again, they don't know what that looks like. They don't know where to get the training. They don't know how to get that and answer with truth and carry the fire. Like they answer those questions.
Yeah.
So you two both went through the first Carry the Fire, right?
Yeah.
Oh, one.
Yeah, 01. So what can you explain just a little bit? What was that like? So, I mean, guys that have gone through now, it's completely different from that. So can you just highlight a little bit of what class 01 looked like?
First, I want to say we didn't sleep at all. The entire
long time, right?
FTX.
I love how it's grown, and how every single time we do Carry the Fire, we try to make it better than the last one. I love that about our whole mindset and the way we do this. One of the big things that was different about the first one. Okay, let's see exactly how many guys were in it.
7? Was 7 or 8?
Hey, Shadow, look on that picture. Look on the picture. I don't want to leave a guy out. Yeah, I think it was about.
I feel like
7.
7.
All right, so 7 guys. So the interesting first one, we all knew each other really well, right? So it was close friends that you kind of know what they know, and you kind of know what they don't know, because you've been doing this stuff together for a while. So there was much less variables.
So this is kind of like if your tribe went to Carry the Fire
Yeah.
all together, and you guys had been meeting for 2
Yeah.
years together.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Very, very much more controlled. No wild cards in that one. And it was just a bunch of conversations that we had about apologetics and how to answer these big block fundamental questions. And I don't know. You go. I don't know how much we want to say.
I'm actually thinking more about the similarities than the differences from 01 to where we are today. Like it was still centered around sharing the gospel, answering questions, defending your faith, as well as leadership, as well as some leadership training. Like that was front and center.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it wasn't about a physical challenge, although it was physically challenging. The leadership training was a piece of it. And then the largest piece was still the apologetics, the practical apologetics training.
So this has got me remembering 3 of the leadership exercises that we still do at FTX. Right. 3 of the leadership exercises that we are still doing, we did in the first one.
Oh, wow.
3 of the big exercises we had in place from the get-go. And here's another thing that we had in place from the get-go was I did not give you guys any information. And that
100%.
was really fun leading up to it, because you guys were all like, okay, so when are we getting together and when are we doing this and when are we meeting and where are we meeting? We weren't calling it the FTX. We were just calling it, I guess, patch class or something. And I just kept telling everybody, like, I'll let you know, when you need to know. And everybody was freaking out. And then I sent a text, like I was watching my watch on the hack, and I sent the text, and it said, like, meet at this location in 12 hours. And people were like, 12 hours? Is this a typo? 12 hours is middle of the night. 12 hours would be 3 a.m. And I'm like, you are correct.
Yeah.
On your math.
Yep.
See you there.
So with Carry the Fire 1 through 7, did you guys do the online calls?
No.
No.
So how did you guys get together and do the training?
Started.
Yeah.
I don't remember when the calls started.
I think it's also really important to highlight, as we're talking about the first one, that was January of 2022, right? That wasn't that long ago. It feels like
almost
10 years ago.
Almost 4 years ago. 3 months shy of being 4 years ago. But it feels like a dozen years ago.
Absolutely.
Like, it has been such a wild, fast, eventful ride since then. Watching this thing blow up from 7 guys to hundreds.
The other thing I really want to point out, and I think this is just part of Goose's amazing leadership, that it would have been really easy to wait and figure all of this out and then launch this program. And if you know Goose, that's not how he's wired, right? So we just started. We just did the first one, and we learned a bunch, a lot of stuff that we kept, a lot of stuff that we've added along the way. But I think it's really cool that there was a need, so we did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and foreshadowing for a future episode, we'll have Sunshine on so he could tell us a little bit more. But moving forward from 1 to 7, that pretty much stayed the same format of you guys would get together, you'd send them some information, they'd come out for, long time, 4 hours is a long time. And then maybe do like an all tribes the next morning. That was right. Kind of the format.
The first 7, we timed them to end right at the beginning of an all tribes. Mm-hmm. So as soon as we ended and handed guys their patches, it was, all right, now let's go do this workout and Devo with everybody else. And then we'll get breakfast at the end of that. So that was kind of how that went. I don't remember when we started doing the calls. Did we have them for 08?
For 8, yeah. And I'm not sure if that was the first one. I think it was, because 08 was kind of the.
I can't remember. Somebody from 07, let us know if you did calls. That's hard to remember.
Yeah, Torque, let us know.
Yeah, but I remember after 08. So we're standing around the fire. Guys are getting breakfast, and at the end of the FTX for 08, and I remember Meat coming up to me because I had question marks in my mind, and I know Sunshine did, of like, do we need to make any big adjustments? How good did this one go? I knew we were going to have a big debrief and ask all those questions in a couple of days. And Meat came walking up to me, and we were talking as we're standing there, and he's just finished FTX, and he said, don't change a thing about those live calls. Yeah. He wasn't even talking FTX stuff. He was like, he said, those calls, and I think his were like Friday mornings. Mm-hmm. I think that was the 08 calls were Friday mornings, because he goes, every Thursday night I've studied because I don't want to be embarrassed on Friday morning. So without that incentive, right? No man wants to be embarrassed in front of a group of men. Mm-hmm. And so we will study extra hard to not look embarrassed and not look foolish in front of other men. So he was sharing that, and I was like, yeah, that is totally right. He was like, hey, if this was just a like a pre-recorded course that you're just clicking through, he goes, I wouldn't have studied as much. You know, you're not going to get called on and, get a spotlight put on you in front of a big group. And so just hearing him say that piece of feedback at the end of 08 made me just like put that in stone.
It's great to call that out because we all intuitively know this is why Weight Watchers worked, because you had to go over there and weigh with everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And if you didn't have to do that, then people don't lose as much weight. Mm-hmm. And in the same way, if there's not it would be easy to say, well, it's put me on the spot, or it feels unfair to make me answer questions that I don't know are coming in front of people. Well, you got a curriculum, and for me too, the fear of giving a terrible answer and being embarrassed in front of my friends, in front of this group of men, was a great incentive.
Now that I think about it, I think we were doing calls with like 3, 4, and 5. I think we started doing some calls, but it wasn't as many. I think we did like
you guys had.
We may have done the test.
We started doing a couple things.
The tactics calls, because I remember we kind of watched some of the calls that you guys did.
We were doing them because I remember conversations Sunshine and I were having way before 08. Now that I think about it, so I think we started doing like, hey, we need a call before the FTX, right? And then it happens, and then you're like, we could use 2 calls before the FTX. And then what happens is the variables, those wild cards I was mentioning, right? You don't know where guys are coming from. Now you got guys coming in to Carry the Fire, and you don't know them well. You don't know their background, and you don't know what these guys don't know. And so that's made us really adjust the curriculum to make it way more robust and much more foundational and fundamental. I think for classes 1 and 2, we assumed, because we had a massive assumption of a base of knowledge. So we were just focusing on like some real fine tuning of some very, specific questions that are in Answer with Truth. And then I would say the more it's grown, and the larger it's gotten, and the more wild cards coming in, we've taken it from kind of like the icing on top that class 1 and 2 were, to like we're baking the whole cake together now.
That even makes me think like that has evolved, because that used to be the field manual.
Oh, right? Yeah, that's right. That's why I made sure to have the word field manual in here, right? Like we've got to keep that right. It was just the field manual. So now it says, the subtitle is The Ambassador's Field Manual for Leading Your Family Spiritually, because it was always
that was the PDF,
and it was a PDF document. And if you printed it out, I think it was like 18 pages of PDF, and everybody's stapling these things and carrying them, and we're in the snow,
right?
And you got guys with PDFs that are soggy and coming apart, and it was just like eventually we were like, we should get this thing bound, was the original thought. And I remember contacting like Kinko's or Office Max to see how much it would cost to get these things bound. It was so ridiculously expensive to get these things bound. We were like, I think it'd be cheaper to publish the thing. You could publish it for less than having them print it and bind it, and then guys can just get their own on Amazon.
Yeah,
that's how that evolved to publish it
from the field manual.
Yeah, just
PDF.
It's only a published book, because that was cheaper than Kinko.
Because Kinko's was
that's right. Yeah, that's right. The spiral bound printing of everything. They were like,
When you're talking about in the snow with the PDF, it just like reminds me of the feedback portion. This is another thing that we've kept from day one, is the opportunity to give feedback and receive feedback from everyone else in your class. And that first FASH class, we had index cards and pens, and you can imagine how well that worked in the snow in January.
Yeah.
Everyone trying to write on those.
So the first one was all me. Like, I wanted to keep it a secret from you guys, right? So like, y'all just showed up. And so it was me running all the leadership exercises, and then the conversations around the fire, and then another leadership exercise, and another conversation around the fire, and there was no coffee. It was like it was BYO coffee.
Yeah.
If you had coffee there, it was because you brought it. And I think Rabbit brought a big thing of it. So we were sitting around, and then I'm passing out 3x5 cards and pins,
that were probably frozen.
Everything was frozen,
sure.
and but that was that turned into a better thing than I ever would have thought.
I think we all still have those cards tucked away somewhere. I think that feedback, I know for me personally, was really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It also was an opportunity, I think, to highlight the fact that there's something to receiving feedback, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to be in a good mindset, and you have to know that what's being presented is being presented in love, especially, these are your brothers, and they simply want to sharpen you. So if you have the opportunity to receive feedback, just making sure that you're receiving it in the proper way.
I don't think we would have made feedback one of our 6 core values had it not been for the feedback portion of Patch Class, was making that such a fundamental part of, how often in life are you ever told, here, write down a strength and a blind spot for your buddies and hand it to them? Like, never. Sorry, what did you say?
When I think about feedback, and we had done this in corporate settings, I'd done it,
right.
360 feedback was common, and we did this over and over. But when it's people you care more about than the people at your office, then that's a bigger deal. But I also think that so much of what we're doing with this, and I think that the name of the book was prescient, because this seeking of truth, if I'm seeking truth about myself, then I want to welcome feedback. And if I'm being truthful with myself about I know what my blind spots are, many of them. If I'm really concentrating on my behavior and on what I'm doing, then I'm already kind of aware of what these things are. Feedback ends up being confirmation, hopefully, of the things that I'm working on or should be working on. So I think it also makes it not sting so much if you're able to be honest with yourself. Then you're prepared and you're looking for confirmation about those things.
And I think, and I've shared this several times, and this was very impactful for me, is when multiple guys tell you the same thing.
Yep.
That's like, if one guy comes to you and says, "Hey man, I don't think you're doing this thing correctly," you can kind of argue with that in your mind. You can kind of rationalize and think, I don't agree with him. I think maybe he's wrong. I'm not so sure. But I'll tell you what, 3 guys give you feedback that says the same thing. You go, okay.
We talk about getting out of your comfort zone all the time. And for me, specifically in that feedback for our class, I was hearing something that I thought, hey, like, this is a good leadership trait. Like, I will step up. I'll take the weight. I'll do this. I'll lead from the front, but I'm not sharing that load. I'll take it all on myself. I'm like, well, I thought that was a good thing. I thought I'm helping by doing this, but then hearing the feedback of, hey, empower the other guys, help train and lead the other guys so you're doing it together. And that's been one of the most impactful things in my life from Carry the Fire feedback that I got, was seeing, I thought it was a good thing. But maybe it is.
That's next level leadership, right? When you're like, I know I could raise my hand and volunteer right now and crush it. And that's no longer the best thing that I could be doing with my abilities. Now what I need to be doing is encouraging and equipping and training and getting those other guys out there. Man, that is the next level leadership lesson.
It's also a blind spot of so many men, right?
Yes.
Because men, you want to do something.
Yeah.
Give me that load, I'll carry it.
Yeah.
But allowing others to carry some of that weight and allowing them the opportunity to lead, that's a great trait to have.
Yeah. So this was the section where I was going to transition from talking about the first 7 to the great 8, all those things. Right? But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to save that for later. But that is why Sheepdog, I definitely asked him here because he went through the greatest patch class. Just kidding, guys. No, the whole reason I joke on this all the time, but like you guys are saying now, like it started with just, hey, we're going to test this out and see how it goes. And then we keep taking those lessons learned and we make it better every single time. But with that, how did we select the people? Because I think patch 8 was the last one that we kind of picked people to come to Carry the Fire, as opposed to signing up and having to register for Carry the Fire.
So I think you'll learn something with this answer. It wasn't a continuation of how we were doing things. It wasn't like that. 8 was totally different. We had not done that with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So we were just doing signups.
Okay.
Right. So guys that signed up for 3, or even 2, guys were signing up for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These were guys who just signed up. There were no invitations. We might have encouraged guys like, hey, you should really head up for this one. And then what happened was so 08. All right. What year was what December was that?
23.
23. What year were you at Ignite that you heard about Men's Alliance?
22.
Okay. So what happened was the timing there between that March of 22.
No, you went to
Was it 23?
Spring of
23.
It was 23. Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So what happened was that was the first time we went to Ignite.
Mm-hmm.
So Men's Alliance did something brand new that year. We sponsored a conference. We had never done anything like that before. We had never spent that much money on anything. Like when we paid to get a booth at Ignite, that was enormous. So we go there and we set up a booth and we're handing out brochures to strangers. This was all new territory for us. This was felt like we were going, big time.
Just a little sidebar. One of the things I remember about that is how much men who came to the conference loved our merch.
Yeah,
right?
we started.
I think we had one T-shirt and one hat. That's all we had.
Yeah,
and guys were just loving it.
This was so early on. We figured out so many things at that Ignite conference. I remember setting up. It was Shadow and Sunshine and Quack and Angus's son Cowboy.
Yes,
and we're unboxing T-shirts and hats and we're setting them on the table. And I remember somebody said we need to have something written here that says the prices of each item. And we were all like, oh man, how did we not think of that? We're I think we had a 3x5 card or a Post-it note with the price. So we're learning everything. So anyway, and this whole idea of going to Ignite was all Quack. So huge kudos to Quack. And then so what happened was, and Sunshine was really running Carry the Fire. And so we come out of Ignite and we just got this huge influx of new men into Men's Alliance, like you and Eagle and Savage, right? And then Big Panda and Sheepdog and Doc and me and just all these guys,
Ripper,
massive influx. Oh yeah. And so Sunshine goes, or no, this was the way the conversation went with Sunshine. We finished our Carry the Fire classes that we had planned for that year. And we were having a conversation and I told Sunshine, or I asked Sunshine, I said, hey, what do you think about adding another Carry the Fire this year because of these guys? And he just had that big old Sunshine grin and he goes, I already have. And he just dies laughing. He goes, I've already had it. It's on the calendar. Yeah. And it's full. And I'm like, whoa, and I was like, heck yeah. So we had this big influx. So we wanted to make sure that we got you guys through this so that y'all could help. We already knew y'all were going to be leaders in 24. Right. And so we were like just forecasting out. We were like, we got to add another class specifically for all these guys to get them through Carry the Fire so they can help us lead this thing in 24. And that's kind of the backstory on class 08 was it was like a kind of a custom class last minute to get this massive new influx of guys through before we went into the new year.
I think that year, that 23 and all of those classes that Sunshine added, I feel like he added like 2 or 3.
He did that a bunch.
It wasn't just
that. Was not just 08. You're right.
And I think this was the first inkling that just how big this need was for training. And as we added classes and classes in 23, and then we needed to look at the calendar for 24 and figure out how we're going to train, whatever that number was that year. 150 guys.
We have always been struggling since the beginning to keep up with demand, right? And that's still our biggest challenge that we're looking at going into 26. We're like, we're going to have to train a ton of instructors who can lead.
There were about 90 patched men at the end of 23. And we brought in 194 into Carry the Fire training in 24. And so we went from 90 and double that number. And I think 170 some of them earned patches.
Yeah.
In 24.
Now we're at 399. Mm-hmm. We have about basically 400 patch guys. And at this moment, we have 14 classes, right? There are 14 classes that are currently in progress
in 2 different states.
Mm-hmm. And so just thinking in 4 years, going from the 7 of us, and it's really exciting because of all the things you were saying is there's nothing else like this. It's changing lives. Just about everybody. I think we probably got about a 98 to 99%. This changed my life response.
Oh yeah.
We do have 1 or 2 guys that were like, meh, but you're like, whoa, okay. Cause the massive amount of guys is this was the most life-changing thing ever. I had a guy, and we have this quote on the website, right? Like one of our guys said, my company that I work for sent me to a weekend leadership retreat that cost $26,000. And he goes, and this was way better than that. And so that piece of feedback was huge, right? It's like, okay, we're onto something here. We got the right formula.
He must have went through patch 8.
He was.
Shout out Savage.
I think there is a correlation. This is patch class and Carry the Fire is not for middle-aged guys necessarily, but there is an element of something I felt coming into it that I was 46 years old when I started when we started Carry the Fire, and you get to that point in life and you're like, have all the really hard things already been shown to me? Are there any interesting challenges that I can undertake at this point in my life? And a lot of people, some people, I think it looks like a midlife crisis, or it looks like I'm going to go run a triathlon, or I'm going to go hike the Inca Trail, or I'm going to go do a thing. And because you're looking for, like, do I still have gas in the tank?
Yeah.
Can I still go hard at something? Can I learn new skills? And it ended up being it answers some of those questions, because you get challenged in a way that's not just a physical challenge. It's not just a mental challenge, but it's actually preparing you for something that's so much more valuable, and preparing you for skills that you need in order to lead your family, but also to do God's work. And so there's I think the benefit of a few more years going into it, you just appreciate it a little bit more. I think about Animal. I think Animal really appreciated coming to Carry the Fire.
Yeah.
But Animal's also young enough that he feels like he's got a lifetime of adventures and challenges and missions ahead of him. And for some of us who have a few more years behind us, it starts to feel like maybe I don't.
Yeah. It's definitely designed more for middle-aged guys than it is for Animals, for teenagers.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of teenagers go through it, and we've had guys in their late 70s go through it.
Yep.
We've had a lot of gray beards go through it, but the average guy is in his 40s. The average guy going through it is not young. He's seasoned, like you said, and I think it is. Just because that's who we are, right? We're just gonna instinctively, subconsciously gear it towards us, So I think, it's amazing how we can. It's powerful and effective from everything from teenagers to 78, 79-year-olds. Have we had anybody in their 80s go through it?
I don't think so.
Not close.
Not
yet. Close. Yeah, but they can, right? So like anybody listening to this, like Thor was saying, it's not primarily a physical event. It is very physically taxing, but that's not the point of it. So the point of it is leadership and discipleship. So I mean, we did have Bench. He was on crutches when he went through it. He was like post-surgery. He was like knee surgery. And so we were like, hey, that's fine. He was like, should I roll? Should I not do this? No, we were like, come on, we'll make it work. So, we haven't had a guy come to it yet in a wheelchair, but I'm anticipating that will happen. It's only a matter of time, and we will certainly be able to make that happen. There's no big physical disability that would ever prohibit a guy from Carry the Fire.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So I'm gonna make this note for myself, so when I watch this back, I can remember Animal. We need to have him on, like when he comes back for Christmas break or something.
Yeah.
Have him and a couple of those younger guys, because like the story that you were just sharing with me a couple weeks ago about how he's experiencing those things that we trained him while he's in college now.
Yeah.
Right. So remember that. But this is like the perfect segue, because we're talking about, you guys are hitting on the physical challenge, the leadership challenges of FTX. But the most important thing of Carry the Fire is the calls, right? The FTX is the memorable thing,
the capstone.
The capstone, the thing that they're going to remember when they're in their 90s, especially if they go through it in their 80s. But the most important thing, the big part of this training, is the online calls. So I want to open this up to all you guys. What are some of those hard questions that the men are trained on during these calls? What are some of those questions that stand out to you guys, like when you went through? What was the hard, and I say the hardest question, we actually have a topic called the hardest question. But what was that for you?
I think for me, it was the most meaningful was the three big buckets: pluralism, relativism, and scientism. I underappreciated how our society is just bathed in these ideologies and these worldviews. It's just everywhere. It's in every book you pick up, in every magazine, it's every television show. It's everywhere all the time. And I wasn't tuned in to seeing it, and especially at the point, a couple of years ago, I've got kids that are 5 and 8 years old, and it was a really important time for me to start to recognize this is relativism. This is where this sneaks in. This is what it sounds like and what it looks like. So as a dad, I can be vigilant about making sure that I'm anchoring on truth all the time on so many issues that were under the radar for me before.
Man, that is awesome to hear.
One of the things that stands out for me personally is this concept of knowing and being able to articulate why you're a Christian. I don't think there's a more important question for a guy to be able to answer. Like, why are you choosing to follow Jesus? And if there's no meat behind that answer, and if it's more of a feeling than knowing that it's true, to me, that's like the most important question. You're basing your entire life and your eternity on this thing. So choosing to follow Jesus and being able to share why you're doing that is so important. Why are you a Christian? That's a really important question to be able to answer.
The distinction between why and how. Right?
Absolutely.
That's something that we see all the time when we ask that question. Guys will like to share,
how.
I was at church for a candlelight service and I was singing and I felt the whatever it was, and that led me to give my life to, or I was at a summer camp or whatever it was. The amazing testimonies, right? That's how, but why? So I'm going to ask you this real quick, Thor. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
Why are you a Christian?
I am a Christian today, sitting here across this table from you because it's true.
What's true?
What's true?
Yeah, what's the truth?
The truth is that
You didn't ask the question.
you didn't
the way we
answer.
usually
I know.
I know.
You trying to throw me off? That's great.
All right.
Like,
You'll still do great. You'll still do great. I have faith.
Why is it true?
why is it true?
Yeah.
There is an overwhelming amount of evidence that tells me that Christianity is true.
What evidence?
What evidence? So the evidence, and I am so glad you're asking this, is the fact that Jesus died via Roman crucifixion, that he was buried in a private tomb, a private, well-known tomb, well-marked. That tomb was found empty, and his disciples, his followers, claim to have seen him risen. And based on that experience, their lives completely changed.
Man, that was awesome.
Yeah. So, man, I want to keep talking about this why part for a minute because, and I had this conversation just a couple weeks ago on one of the classes calls, and it's worth repeating, right? So guys that are Christians because of an experience that they had. God changed my life. I used to be an addict, and then I found God, and now I'm a different person. Those type of stories. So the guy was saying, like, what's wrong with that story? Why do I need this evidence? Why do I need this why that you're offering about evidence? What's wrong with my story? And I thought, man, that's a great question. Let me explain to you where this is coming from. So let me start with this. Knowing your why is important for when everything is going bad. It's not important. I would tell the guy, yeah, it's not a real big deal today, is it? While you're sitting here and everything's going great in life. Your why is only super important when life is falling apart. When everything gets bad, that's when your why becomes important. And a good example of this is, I'm just going to use SEAL training because I've talked to guys who have been through it. And at the worst moments, when the instructors know that this is the worst moment, that it's unbearable, that you're freezing, shivering, you're like jackhammering cold, and you're just in cold water, and it's 3 a.m. and the instructors will come up to the guys and say, why are you even doing this? Why are you here? And the thing that I've heard, I haven't gone through this, but the thing that I've heard is that the guys who think that's a good question, why am I here? Like, they're about to quit. They're done. If the guys who make it are the guys who they know their why so well that middle of the night, freezing cold, ask that question, they know their why. The guys who know their why stick with it. But the guys who are like, yeah, why am I here? They just cracked their foundation, right? And so what I told the guy, who was saying, you know, I was an alcoholic, found God, my life's better. That's a good enough why for me. I answered him this way. I said, what if 5 or 10 years from now you relapse?
Yeah.
And he also, part of his story, I think he said he was homeless or on the street. And I said, 5, 10 years from now, you're back on the street, homeless and drunk. Now, why are you a Christian? He goes, okay. All right, I see it right. I said, if you've built your foundation, if your whole why that you're a Christian is built on a foundation of God made my life better, any version of that, any version of a warm, fuzzy feeling at church or summer camp, or a big life change involving healing from addiction or pain or anything like that, if it's built on anything like that, that foundation could change. That foundation is not a firm foundation. That's temporary. And if it gets pulled out from under you, if that foundation crumbles, if you find yourself like a Job or a Paul, imprisoned, chained, now what's your why? And so that's why, like what Thor said, that evidence for the resurrection, that'll never change. That's an unchanging foundation that no matter what your life goes through with its ups and downs, if you have good historical evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, nothing else matters. That's your why, that when Satan whispers to you in your ear during life's storm, why are you even a Christian? Why are you even doing this? We want our guys to know their why really quick, to be that quick answer. Here's my why. And it's got nothing to do with how I'm feeling today or the circumstances of my life. It's based on historical evidence that Jesus of Nazareth walked out of his tomb. That's why we should all be Christians. We should all have the exact same why, but we can all have very different hows.
Yeah. I also love that. I love that answer. And I also, we practice learning to respond that Christianity makes an exclusive truth claim.
Oh, yeah.
And the other reason why that answer is so important, and I love when a guy will give his testimony in a call, and my favorite response is, man, I'm so glad that worked for you. I'm a Buddhist and I also had a life-changing experience. High five. We're in the same boat.
Yeah.
And they go, whoa, wait. No.
Oh, no, wait.
No, wait. Because anyone can make that claim of a life-changing experience with many different versions.
And your personal testimony is important.
Absolutely.
And what becomes really powerful is when you couple them together. You couple the truth of the gospel with your personal experience, and that's just a powerful thing to share.
Yeah.
I tell guys to lead with the evidence, lead with truth,
Right.
Like a 1-2 combination. You lead with the jab, right? You lead with the one, and you follow up with the personal experience, right? We should be Christians because of the evidence, right? And then let me tell you about how it's changed my life personally. And if you go in that order, you don't have to backpedal. You don't have to try to come back and fill in stuff. If you lead with personal experience, you're going out on a limb there where, like Sheepdog said, they come back with their personal experience.
Right.
And now you're going to go, oh, but wait, hold on. There's also all this evidence. Why didn't you start with that?
Or you run into a situation with like a non-believer and you're sharing your life-changing experience, that how you were saved and Jesus is making your life better. He saved you from whatever it was, PTSD, addiction, whatever those things are. And then that person says, well, why hasn't he done that for me?
Yeah. If God's real, why didn't he do that for me? Why? I guess he likes you better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, you put obstacles in your way. And that's a lot of the things that we teach in this is we're teaching you to avoid that, doing that. So setting up, like you just said, using the evidence first, answering with truth, just makes a clearer path to lead people to the gospel.
Yeah. Let me add one more. Your question was
We're
what's
going
one
to
of
do
the
an hour
things
on this topic.
Yeah, one of the things that the pieces of feedback that I got from Carry the Fire that I really loved was, and I've probably heard this from about 4 or 5 guys, say, there was this one topic in here that I thought was crazy. Guys will come up to me at the end of an FTX and they'll be like, "Hey, I loved all this, but there was this one thing." And they were like, I thought this thing was really odd and strange. Like, I thought, like, who would ever say that? Who would ever ask that? One example is Christianity is a copycat religion. There's been legends of dying and rising saviors for centuries, and the story of Jesus is just another one of those myths. This guy was saying to me, I thought that one was crazy. Who's going to ever say that? He goes, and as soon as we did that on one of the calls, he goes, that next week, I was talking to a person who said that exact thing. And I'm standing here listening to the guy, and I'm like, no way. This is mind blowing. This guy was like, oh, you're a Christian? Well, the story of Jesus dying and rising is just, a copycat of earlier ancient myths. And the guy's like, I can't believe I know how to respond to this. Right. And he asked the guy, oh, what early historical sources have you read about those myths you're referring to? And the guy was like, oh, well, I mean, I haven't really read anything. It's just this video I saw this YouTube video. The guy was like, oh, well, so I'm a Christian, so I require a lot of evidence for what I believe. I require, multiple early recorded eyewitness testimonies for what I believe. But if you can believe, off of just a YouTube video, man, you got a lot more faith than me. And he was like, I never would have been able to say that, right? And so for me personally, I love the feedback when a guy goes through and he thinks one of these things we teach is a little bit far-fetched. And, we tell guys, like, if you haven't heard this yet, you will. Because this objection to Christianity, it's gaining momentum. It's growing. That's why it's included. And when the guys say, I never thought I would use that tool, and then I just used it, that to me is one of the best pieces of feedback for the online calls, the curriculum.
And that's going to be a whole episode where we're bringing guys back in, like Tatanka and Bull with their example. I mean, we hear them all the time. So if you guys stay tuned for that, because we'll bring in patch guys and let them tell their stories about, hey, this happened. I was on a call and then I used it like that next day, that next week. And how often they're using this, because we create this.
You might need to share your story about being on an airplane.
Yeah. We'll get to all that. So actually, what we're going to do right now, I want to wrap it up with you answering that question that we had. Like, what's your favorite hard question or your favorite topic that we teach through that 8-week course?
Oh man, I don't know if I can pick one.
Well, that's why your week is probably like that. When Goose runs it, he just covers the whole gambit.
I try to like scattergun it. And plus I do it different every time, and it's weird, but that's how I like it. I think sheepdogs answer the 3 big buckets because that's probably the most relevant in our culture right now. I hope that when a guy goes through Carry the Fire, I hope he sees. He's able to see some more stuff, connect some more dots about why we do things in Men's Alliance the way we do. I think that going through Carry the Fire, some of like our 12 memory verses will click, right? So for example, last night at Alpha Tribe, finished the workout, gathering around the fire, saying the memory verse, this month, Acts 4:12, right? So salvation is found in no one else. For there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved. So like guys in tribes around the world are learning that. But when you go through Carry the Fire, you really learn why is that a significant verse? And it's for the bucket of pluralism, right? That says maybe all religions are valid paths to God, right? I think if there is a God, probably there'd be multiple paths to him, and maybe all religions are worshiping the same God. We're just calling him by different names. That whole cultural notion that is the religion of Oprah, right? That is the everybody wins.
You get a path. You get a path.
Yeah, that's right. That's everybody wins. Love wins. That's the title of the book too. Love wins. What was the guy's name? Rob something. Anyway, it's probably good that I can't give him credit, but that's the whole universalism, notion that's out there of, in the end, everybody's going to go to heaven. In the end, it doesn't matter what you believe or who you believe in. That's why Acts 4:12 is so important, is because that verse tells you there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved. So learning those verses, those are tools for being able to have that conversation with the person, who's saying maybe all paths are valid. You can say, well, do you know what Scripture had to say about that? Do you know what Paul wrote about that? Or do you know what Jesus said about that in John 14:6, right? Which is another one of our monthly memory verses. So I think that just kind of being able to connect, here's the why for all those monthly memory verses you've been learning. I like to say that at the FTX, you might have that wax on, wax off moment where you realize that all that waxing on and off you've been doing was actually preparing you for something much more important, when you've learned all of Romans Road is actually how to share the gospel.
Right.
All those burpees you were doing in January and February and March for learning those verses, that's so that you can share the gospel and be able to talk about, we've all fallen short of the glory of God, and the payment for that sin is death, but God loved us so much that he made that payment for us. And just being able to do that that's what we're doing. We're creating those ambassadors. So long answer is those three buckets. But then I got to say this one too, because this was just like my personal one. And this one was the one that kept me quiet for a long time, because I was always slightly embarrassed by the Bible, right? Like, you feel like there's stuff in there that's so embarrassing and cringy, you hope nobody brings it up, right? Like, you kind of need to apologize for parts of the Bible as a Christian. That's how I felt, right? It's like, hey, I'm good with Jesus. The Jesus part and the resurrection part, I'm good with, but I hope nobody brings up Noah. I hope nobody brings up Jonah. I hope nobody brings up the parting of the Red Sea or whatever. Name your miracle. And so for me, learning the response to those of just, it's so simple. Do you believe that miracles are possible? Just learning to respond to that question. And it's really like this is zooming out, right? You're like way down here in the weeds. You can talk about Noah and the ark and animals and archaeological evidence for floods, or you can zoom way out to 30,000 feet and ask the person, in your worldview, do you believe that miracles are possible? Right? And if they're like, yeah, I guess maybe miracles might be possible. Great. I agree. I think miracles are possible too. And those are some ancient recordings of miracles that you and I both agree are possible. Yep. Right. So it's just like such a game-changing way to think of things, and relate to a person, and not being defensive. Right. To me, that's a big one. Is I think men are generally defensive and argumentative, and we connect, especially if you've been a Christian for a long time and you kind of grew up in church, you connect your identity so much with the Bible that if anybody pokes a hole in anything in the Bible, you take it really, really personally, and you get upset and defensive, which makes you a terrible ambassador, right? I think it was Kokel said, if anybody gets upset, you lose as the Christian. If anybody in this conversation gets upset, you lose as the Christian ambassador. So we can't afford to get defensive and battle and go to war over the flood and the age of the earth and Jonah, and is it possible for a human to stay alive in the belly of a fish or whatever? I don't know. we can either do all that or we can zoom out and ask, do you believe that miracles are possible? Do you believe there's a God? Right? If there's a God, if a God exists, then miracles are possible, right? And so you see like a bigger picture here of what's going on in Scripture. And to me, learning these apologetics, like I learned from, Aaron Boykin at first, and then from all these authors, and now we're passing on to other men through Carry the Fire. Learning this stuff makes us better ambassadors because we realize we don't have to fall on our sword over every miracle in the Old Testament, right? We can just say, hey, listen, if you don't believe in a God, you believe in a bigger miracle than anything in the Bible. If you don't believe in a God, you believe that the entire universe came from nothing. And that's a much bigger miracle than animals on a boat, right? So I don't have enough faith to believe everything came from nothing, right? So you, as the atheist, you have a lot more faith than I do as a Christian, because as a Christian, I have to have evidence for what I believe, and that's why I'm a Christian. And so learning how to engage in those conversations keeps me from getting defensive. It keeps me from feeling offended, right? And it makes me a cooler, calmer, more engaging spokesperson for Christ. Hopefully, that's the goal, right? That's the goal, is to be that ambassador who, I think another reason why some men keep quiet, and this was true for me, is I know topics that I will get heated over, right? And so I don't want to get heated, and I know that topic will make me heated, so therefore I'm going to avoid the whole topic, right? Because I can't do it coolly. I'm going to take it personally. I'm going to, whatever. And so, well, that's a bad thing. We should work on that, right? Because if you're not going to be an ambassador for Christ because this topic gets you upset, so you're going to stay on the sideline for the rest of your life, or you can learn how to have these conversations without getting upset and get yourself back into the game. So I think that's a big piece of why Carry the Fire is so important, because if we can mobilize men to get off the sideline, to get back in the game of engaging culture, engaging your kids, engaging your parents, your in-laws, your neighbors, your coworkers in these conversations, because now you're confident. Now you're not going to get heated. You're just going to have fun with this conversation and ask the person some thought-provoking questions that will hopefully put a pebble in their shoe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's some discerning there that I appreciate a lot about the curriculum, in that there are some issues of theology and some understanding about things in the Old Testament that as Christians we get to wrestle with, and we get to ask God to reveal some of his ways through that, and many of the ways that he's brought glory to himself through those miracles. But we're orienting the course around these we're not developing argumentation against other Christians about theological issues.
Right.
We're orienting the course around an unbelieving world and the barrier questions that keep them from gaining access to Jesus. And many of these things, the topic of old versus new earth, we don't talk about end times, because these things should not be barriers to someone coming to Jesus. And
that's right.
And then amongst ourselves, we get to have as much fun as we want about all the rest of it.
Right. Pre-trib, post-trib, amillennialism.
That's after patch.
So there's that orientation as guys think about that. We're specifically talking about speaking to an unbelieving world and answering the barrier questions that they have.
So speaking of fun and all the conversation we're having, like, we could keep going on, and we probably will. We'll probably end this episode and then just shoot number 2 right away. But I do want to close it out. So guys, if you're watching this and you're getting anything out of it, it's sparking a fire in you. 1, like and subscribe to get this out there to more guys so they can see this, right? And then if you have questions, Goose, where can they go to find out more about Carry the Fire?
Awesome question. Go to men'salliancetribe.com and click on experiences. You'll see Carry the Fire right there. this is the most important thing we do. men'salliancetribe.com. Carry the fire. Enroll. Classes fill up really fast.
You have waiting lists.
We have waiting lists. Get your name on it. It's going to be worth it. And like we were talking about at the beginning, what we've been trying to do this whole time is expand our capacity to meet the demand. So keep the demand coming.
Yep. All right. So before we close, Thor, you mind close us out in prayer, brother?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, man. Father God, we thank you so much for this opportunity to train men. God, I just pray a blessing on every man who's currently going through Carry the Fire, every man who's thinking about going through Carry the Fire. I pray that you would give them the ability to hone their skills to be the best barbarian ambassador for you. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Man, that is so fun. That is so
All right. We'll see you around the fire.
Man.